The stars bent and twisted as the human ship emerged from its first faster-than-light jump. Inside the command deck of the UN's Defiance, Captain Jiwan watched the screens with steady eyes. Her crew had just made history. They were the first humans to break the light barrier, the first to step beyond their own solar system. The celebration would have to wait, though. Dozens of unknown vessels surrounded them within minutes. The alien ships were massive, each one 3 times the size of the Defiance. They moved with purpose, forming a perfect sphere around the human vessel. Their hulls gleamed with technologies that Earth scientists had only theorized about. Giwan ordered her crew to battle stations, but she kept weapons powered down. Not yet. She needed to understand what was happening. A transmission came through on all frequencies. The bridge computers struggled to translate the complex patterns of light and sound. When the message finally decoded, it appeared on every screen in cold, formal text. The Galactic Council demanded the immediate surrender of the human vessel. They required all faster-than-light technology to be handed over. They insisted that humans cease all interstellar activity till proper authorization could be granted. G1 read the message 3 times. Her communications officer looked at her with worried eyes, waiting for orders. The rest of the bridge crew held their breath. This was it. First contact with alien life. Humanity had dreamed of this moment for centuries. They had imagined friendship, trade, and knowledge sharing. They had prepared for hostility and war, but no one had prepared for this. These aliens treated humans like children who had stolen their parents' car. She opened a channel. Her voice was calm and clear. This is Captain Jiwan of the United Nations ship Defiance. We are a peaceful vessel from Earth on a mission of exploration. By whose authority do you make these demands? The response came quickly. Ambassador Velthor appeared on the main screen. He was tall and thin, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. His eyes were triple-layered and moved independently of each other. He spoke in a voice that the computers translated into perfect English, though something in the tone suggested he was not used to being questioned. We are the Galactic Council, Velthor said. We have maintained order in this galaxy for 10,000 of your years. All species who achieve faster-than-light capability must submit to Council authority. This is law. This is tradition. This is how civilization functions. You are new. You do not understand. Surrender your vessel and your technology. You will be evaluated. If you prove worthy, you may be granted limited access to certain trade routes under Council supervision. Guan felt something cold settle in her stomach. She had grown up reading about Earth's history. She knew what happened when powerful nations told weaker ones they existed only by permission. She knew what evaluation and supervision really meant. She looked at her crew. They were scared, but they trusted her. We decline, Giwan said simply. Velthor's 3 eyes focused on her all at once. You do not understand. This is not a negotiation. Every species in this galaxy follows Council law. There are no exceptions. If you do not comply, you will face economic sanctions. Your world will be isolated. Your people will have no access to galactic trade, no advanced medicines, no new technologies. You will be alone. Guan smiled, though there was no warmth in it. We've been alone for our entire existence. We've done fine so far. She turned to her navigation officer. Broadcast our position and our greeting on all known frequencies. Let everyone know humanity has joined the galaxy. The alien ambassador's skin rippled with what might have been shock or anger. That is forbidden. You cannot simply announce yourselves. The galaxy is not safe. There are hostile forces. Pirates. Warlike species. The Council maintains order precisely to prevent chaos. Then it sounds like we should meet everyone and make our own judgments, Guan replied. She nodded to her tactical officer. Power weapons. Navigation, prepare jump coordinates. Random vector, maximum distance. Velthor's image leaned forward. If you run, we will find you. If you resist, we will take your technology by force. You are one ship. We are the combined might of 17 civilizations. You cannot win this. Jiwan's finger hovered over the jump activation. You're probably right. But here's something you should know about humans. We really don't like being told what to do. She pressed the button. The stars stretched and bent once more. The Defiance vanished, leaving the Council fleet grasping at empty space. Across the galaxy, the Council's emergency session began within hours. The great chamber on the Council homeworld filled with representatives from 17 different species. Some breathed oxygen, others methane or chlorine. Some had bodies, others were patterns of energy contained in specialized suits, but all of them shared one thing in common. They were confused and frightened. Velthor stood before them and delivered his report. A new species had rejected Council authority. They had broadcast their location to every faction in the galaxy. They had fled rather than submit. In 10,000 years of Council history, this had never happened. Every species, upon learning of the Council's existence, had either joined willingly or been forced to comply. The system worked because everyone believed it was the only way civilization could function. The Council. Members argued among themselves. Some wanted immediate military action. Others suggested economic pressure. A few voices called for understanding and dialogue. But underneath all the debate was a current of real fear. If humans could simply say no and escape, what would stop other species from doing the same? What would happen to the careful balance of power that kept hostile empires at bay? What would happen to the trading regulations that prevented economic warfare? What would happen to the Council itself? On Earth, G1's message had already reached military command. Colonel Deho read her report with a growing smile. The aliens had shown their hand. They wanted submission, not friendship. They wanted control, not cooperation. Well, humanity had spent its entire history fighting against exactly that. He began making calls. There were 14 more ships being built in secret facilities around the solar system. It was time to accelerate the timeline. If the galaxy wanted to meet humanity, humanity would make sure it was a memorable introduction. The age of human isolation was over. The question now was whether the galaxy was ready for what came next. The Council's central research facility orbited a dying star, far from any inhabited worlds. Inside its vast databases, xenopsychologist Threndak had spent 6 weeks studying everything Earth had ever broadcast into space. Radio signals, television shows, internet data that had leaked through early satellite systems, and the deliberate messages humans had sent seeking contact. She had watched their wars and their peace treaties. She had studied their art and their science. And now she understood why the Council was doomed. Threndak was a Quillith, species that evolved in vast underground colonies, where every individual had a specific role determined by genetic programming. The idea of choice in one's life path was alien to her, but she was a scientist. She could understand things even if she could not feel them. And what she understood about humans terrified her more than any weapon ever could. She prepared her report and requested an immediate full Council session. The representatives gathered in the great chamber, irritated at the interruption. They were busy trying to track down human ships that kept appearing in random systems, making contact with various species, and then vanishing before Council forces could respond. 15 human vessels were now operating independently across Council space. No one could predict where they would appear next. Threndak activated the central display. Images from Earth filled the chamber. Humans building cities. Humans fighting wars. Humans reaching for the stars. "I have identified the source of the problem," she began. "It is not their technology. It is not their military capability. It is their fundamental psychology. They are broken." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Velthar spoke up. "Explain." "Every species in this council evolved with natural hierarchies," Threndak said. "The Quillith have genetic castes. The Torvin have pack structures led by the strongest. The Mexith have hive minds. The Karathi have philosophical acceptance of societal roles. We all understand, deep in our biology, that order requires someone to lead and others to follow. This is how stable civilizations form." She changed the image. Humans from different time periods appeared. Humans evolved as persistent hunters and toolmakers. They survived not through strength or speed, but through endurance and innovation. They learn to cooperate, but cooperation for them is a choice, not a biological imperative. Look at their history. They have overthrown kings. They have toppled empires. They have rejected gods. They have waged wars specifically to resist authority they deemed unjust. More images float across the screen. Revolutions, protests, declarations of independence. They have a concept they call freedom. Not freedom from danger or hunger, but freedom from being controlled by others. They would rather die than submit to authority they have not chosen to accept. This is not logic. This is not rational. This is their nature. The council chamber fell silent. Finally, Counselor Nithra spoke. Surely they can be made to see reason. We offer them protection. Access to technology, trade benefits. We offer them the accumulated wisdom of 10,000 years of civilization. Threndek shook her head. They do not want our protection. They want to protect themselves. They do not want our wisdom. They want to make their own mistakes and learn from them. I found something in their broadcasts, a saying that appears across multiple cultures and time periods. They say it is better to die free than live as a slave. They mean it literally. She pulled up more data. In their most recent global conflict, small nations fought against empires with vastly superior military force. They fought for years. They suffered millions of casualties. And many of them won, simply because they refused to surrender. The empires eventually gave up because the cost of ruling people who would never stop resisting became too high. Velthor stood abruptly. Then we destroy them. If they cannot be civilized, they are a threat to everything we have built. You do not understand, Threndak said quietly. It is already too late. They have been broadcasting their philosophy to every species they encounter. They ask simple questions. Why does the council have authority? Who gave it to them? What happens if we refuse? These questions have never been asked before. But now that humans have asked them, others are beginning to wonder. On Earth, Colonel Deho stood in the command center, watching displays that showed the position of every human ship. They were spread across dozens of systems now. Not invading. Not conquering. Just talking. The strategy was simple and had been used throughout human history. Find the dissatisfied. Find the oppressed. Find those who have questions. Offer them an alternative. Ship captains reported back regularly. Commander Borum had made contact with a mining colony on the edge of council space. The workers were treated as second-class citizens, with most of their profits going to council taxation. Borum had simply asked them why they accepted this. The question alone had started a labor movement. Captain Minsu had encountered a species that had been denied council membership 3 times due to insufficient cultural development. He had offered them a trade agreement directly, bypassing the council entirely. The species had accepted. Every human ship carried the same message. We are not your rulers. We are not your masters. We are your equals, and we offer partnership. You do not need the council's permission to trade with us. You do not need anyone's permission to determine your own future. The galaxy is big enough for all of us. Deho knew this was dangerous. The council would not sit idle while their authority crumbled. But humanity had made its choice. They would stand for themselves and offer a hand to anyone else who wanted to stand as well. If that meant war, so be it. Humans had fought wars for less important reasons. His second-in-command, Major Sumi, approached with a datapad. We have a problem, sir. 3 council species have withdrawn their support for military action against us. Their populations are demanding to know why the council fears open dialogue with humans. There are protests on 7 council worlds. The member governments are losing control of the narrative. Deho smiled. Good, keep our ships moving. Keep asking questions. Keep offering alternatives. We do not need to defeat the council militarily. We just need to make enough beings in the galaxy realize they have a choice. Back in the council chamber, Threndak finished her report. Humans have introduced a virus into our civilization. Not a biological one, an ideological one. The idea that authority must be earned rather than assumed. The idea that beings have the right to govern themselves. These ideas cannot be contained once they are released. We can destroy humanity, but we cannot destroy the questions they have asked. Elther's skin rippled with anger. Then we must act quickly, before these ideas spread further. But even as he spoke, reports came in. Demonstrations on council worlds, colonies declaring independence, trade unions forming without council approval. The virus was already spreading, and at the center of it all were humans asking the simplest and most dangerous question in the galaxy. Why should anyone rule over anyone else? The galaxy would never be the same, High Commander. Zelmoth watched 300 warships assemble in formation around his flagship. The enforcement fleet represented the combined military power of 12 council species. Each ship was a masterpiece of technology, built over decades by civilizations that had perfected warfare into a precise science. Against them stood one primitive world that had barely achieved faster-than-light travel. The vote had been close, but the council had decided. Humanity would be made an example. Not destroyed, but humbled. Their industrial capacity would be disabled. Their faster-than-light vessels would be confiscated. Their people would learn that the galaxy had rules, and those rules would be enforced. Then, perhaps in a few generations, it could be allowed back into civilized space as proper, obedient members. Zelmoth was a Torvan, species that had evolved from pack hunters. He understood dominance and submission. He had fought in 17 campaigns to bring order to chaotic regions of space. He had seen countless species resist at first, then accept council authority once they understood the futility of opposition. Humans would be no different. They were brave and defiant now. But bravery faded when ships burned and cities fell. The fleet entered human space after a 3-week journey. Zelmoth expected to find a desperate defense, perhaps a few ships trying to delay the inevitable. Instead, he found something that made his tactical computers scream warnings. Earth's orbit had been transformed into a fortress. Hundreds of weapons platforms floated in defensive grids. The moon's surface was covered with railgun batteries. Mars hosted entire wings of small fighter craft. And between all of these, human ships waited in formations that made no tactical sense, according to any known military doctrine. Transmission came through on all channels. Admiral Hijin appeared on the screen. She was young for a human military commander, but her eyes were old. She wore a simple uniform with no decorations except a small flag patch. Behind her, Zelmoth could see the bridge of her flagship, filled with crew members working calmly at their stations. "You have entered human sovereign space without permission," Hijin said. Her voice was steady and cold. "Leave now, or accept the consequences." Zelmoth activated his own transmission. "I am High Commander, Zelmoth of the Council Enforcement Fleet. You are ordered to power down all weapons and prepare to be boarded. Your faster-than-light vessels will be confiscated. Your orbital facilities will be dismantled. Resist, and we will use force. You cannot win this fight." Hijin smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. "You are probably right. We have been in space for less than a century. You have been fighting wars among the stars for thousands of years. By every rational calculation, we should surrender." She paused. "But humans are not always rational. Let me tell you a story." She pressed a button, and the transmission expanded. It was not just going to the Council fleet anymore. It was broadcasting across every frequency, to every listening post in 100 light-years. 247 years ago, a small group of humans decided to fight the most powerful empire on their planet. They were farmers and merchants with basic weapons. The empire had professional soldiers, massive fleets, and unlimited resources. Every rational person said the rebels would lose. Images appeared on the transmission. Historical footage from Earth. They fought for 8 years. They lost most of their battles. Their capital was captured. Their armies were scattered, but they never surrendered. Eventually, the empire gave up. It was simply too expensive to rule people who would never stop fighting. More images. Different wars. Different eras. This pattern repeated throughout our history. Small nations standing against empires. colonies rebelling against their masters, people fighting against impossible odds because they believed freedom was worth any price. Sometimes they lost. Often they died. But enough of them won that we learned something important. Hajin's face filled the screen again. We learned that the willingness to fight matters more than the ability to win. We learned that people who have nothing left to lose are the most dangerous enemy. We learned that you cannot rule those who refuse to be ruled. She looked directly at Zelmoth. So here's our offer. Leave now with your ships and your dignity. Or stay and learn why humans study war. Zelmoth cut the transmission. His tactical officer was already running combat simulations. The numbers were clear. The Council fleet would win. Casualties would be higher than expected, perhaps 10 to 15% losses, but victory was certain. He gave the order to advance. The battle began with the humans doing something no rational military force would do. They sent civilian ships, converted freighters, and mining vessels directly at the Council fleet. Zelmoth's ships held fire, unwilling to destroy obvious non-combatants. Then the civilian ships exploded.
Yes.
Massive fusion detonations that disrupted the Council's formations and disabled their shields. Human fighters poured through the gaps. They were crude things, barely more than engines with weapons attached. They moved in patterns that made no sense, random and chaotic. But there were so many of them, and they fought with a fury that shocked the Council crews. When damaged, they rammed Council ships rather than retreat. When surrounded, they detonated their own reactors to take enemies with them. Admiral Hyjin coordinated the defense from her flagship. She had studied every battle humanity had ever fought. She knew they could not win through superior technology or tactics, but they could win through sheer determination and a willingness to sacrifice everything. She watched her ships die and sent more into the fight. She watched space stations detonate and use their explosions to destroy Council vessels. She traded lives for time and space, using every brutal lesson human history had taught. Zelmoth found himself fighting a war he did not understand. His ships were superior in every way, but the humans fought like they had already lost, and were just trying to hurt their enemy as much as possible before dying. His captains reported crew morale problems. They had signed up to enforce Council authority, not to slaughter desperate defenders who kept coming no matter how many died. On the third day of battle, Zelmoth received reports that changed everything. Human ships from other systems were converging on Earth, not just military vessels, but armed merchant ships, converted colony transports, even pleasure craft with improvised weapons. Humans from across their solar system were abandoning their positions and rushing to defend their homeworld. His fleet was winning the battle, but he was losing 40% of his ships doing it. And reinforcements kept arriving. He made the decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. He ordered a retreat. The enforcement fleet, the pride of the Council military, withdrew from human space. Behind them, they left wreckage and bodies. But they left Earth intact and free. Across the galaxy, beings watched the broadcasts. They saw a primitive species stand against the Council's military might and survive. They saw that the Council could be resisted. They saw that authority backed by force could be challenged. And they began to ask themselves the question humans had been asking all along: why should we obey? Admiral Hyjin stood on the bridge of her damaged flagship and looked at Earth through the view screen. Half her fleet was destroyed. Thousands of her people were dead. But they had won something more important than a battle. They had proven that humanity would not kneel. The galaxy would have to accept humans as equals, or it would have to destroy them completely. There would be no middle ground. Colonel Deho sent a message to every human ship in space. They blinked. Now we show them what comes next. The news of the Council's defeat spread faster than light itself. Within days, 3 member species formally withdrew their support from the Council's central authority. Within weeks, colony worlds across the galaxy began demanding greater autonomy. Within months, the order that had maintained galactic peace for 10,000 years was fracturing. At its foundation, Council Chairwoman Liaresh stood before the emergency assembly and tried to maintain her composure. She was ancient even by her species' long life standards. She had seen the Council weather crises before: pirate uprisings, economic collapses, even wars between member species. But she had never seen anything like this. The problem was not military or economic. It was philosophical. Humans had asked a question that could not be unasked. By what right does anyone rule another? We must adapt, Laresh said to the assembled representatives. The old methods are failing. We need to negotiate with humanity from a position of respect rather than authority. Half the chamber erupted in protest. General Verkesh, leader of the militarist faction, stood with his forearms spread wide. We cannot negotiate with those who defy us. Every day we delay, more colonies rebel. More species question our authority. We must strike Earth with everything we have. Reduce their world to ash. Make an example so terrible that no one will ever dare resist again. Councillor Nithra, leader of the reformed faction, responded with icy calm. And how many of our own ships and soldiers are you willing to sacrifice? The humans destroyed 40% of our enforcement fleet. If we send everything we have and they fight the same way, we might win, but the Council will be left defenseless against external threats. The Draken Empire watches our borders even now, waiting for weakness. The argument consumed the chamber. No one noticed when Laresh quietly dispatched Ambassador Krishna to Earth with a private mission: negotiate, find common ground, save the Council before it tears itself apart. Krishna arrived at Earth 3 weeks later aboard a diplomatic vessel, flying flags of truce. She was a Mexith, a species that communicated through color changes in their crystalline skin. She had been chosen specifically because her people had always advocated for peace. If anyone could reach an understanding with humanity, it would be her. She was received in Seoul by Earth's diplomatic corps. The human city amazed her. It was crowded and noisy and chaotic, yet somehow functional. Beings moved with purpose, but without the rigid organization she saw in council cities. There were no visible hierarchies, no clear markers of rank and status. Just people going about their lives. Diplomat Soman met Krishna in a formal reception hall that mixed traditional Korean architecture with modern technology. Salman was small and soft-spoken, nothing like the fierce warriors who had bloodied the Council fleet. But her eyes held the same determination Krishna had seen in every human she had studied. They sat across from each other, tea cooling between them. Krishna began her prepared speech. The Council recognizes that our initial approach was flawed. We treated you as subjects rather than equals. We wish to correct this mistake. Humanity is invited to join the Galactic Council as a full member species with voting rights and representation. In exchange, you must agree to follow galactic law and cease your unauthorized expansion into Council space. Salman listened politely, then poured more tea for both of them. Thank you for the offer, she said. We decline. Krishna's skin rippled through several colors, confusion mixing with surprise. I do not understand. This is an unprecedented concession. No species has ever been offered full Council membership after such a brief contact period. You would have access to technology, trade networks, and military protection. Why would you refuse? Salman smiled gently. Because you are offering us a seat at your table, but we are building our own table. A bigger one. With more seats? She activated a display that filled one wall. Star maps appeared, showing dozens of systems highlighted in blue. Over the past 3 months, humanity has formed the Free Alliance. 23 species have joined so far. We offer them mutual defense, unrestricted trade, and one simple rule: no species governs another. Each member maintains complete sovereignty. We make decisions through voluntary cooperation, not imposed authority. Krishna stared at the map. She recognized many of the systems. Fringe colonies that the Council had deemed too primitive for membership. Mining operations that had been denied trade rights. Species that had been classified as developing and restricted to their home systems. All of them now working together under human coordination. This is chaos, Krishna whispered. Without central authority, without regulation, civilizations fall into conflict. Resources are exploited. The strong dominate the weak. This is why the Council exists. To prevent such chaos, Salmon refilled the teacups again. Perhaps the council exists to maintain its own power. Tell me, Ambassador, which council species votes against its own interests? Which member has ever successfully changed a law that benefited the founding species? When was the last time a new species was granted full membership rights? The questions hung in the air. Krishina had no answers because she knew the truth. The council maintained order, yes, but it also maintained the status quo. The powerful remained powerful. The weak remained weak. Change came slowly, if it came at all. You're exporting revolution, Krishina said. It was not an accusation, just a statement of fact. We are exporting a choice, Salmon corrected. Species can join the alliance, join the council, remain independent, or form their own organizations. We are not forcing anyone to follow our way. We are simply showing them that alternatives exist. Krishina left Earth with her mission failed. She reported back to Liresh with grim news. The humans were not rebels trying to overthrow the council. They were builders creating something new. And they were succeeding because they offered something the council never had: freedom without protection. Risk without safety nets, but also dignity without submission. The council's response was divided and slow. The militarists wanted immediate action. The reformists called for accommodation. The traditionalists insisted nothing was wrong and the situation would resolve itself. While they argued, the galaxy continued to change around them, engineered Ji-hoon. Working with a team from 7 different species, introduced human agricultural techniques to 3 colony worlds that had been suffering from food shortages for generations. The council had provided minimal aid, just enough to prevent complete starvation. In exchange for mining rights and political loyalty, Ji-hoon's team asked for nothing except the chance to help. Within months, the colonies were producing surplus food. Dr. Yoonji established medical exchanges with species across the alliance. She discovered that many council members had been suffering from genetic stagnation because the council controlled access to advanced medical technology and restricted its use to maintain political leverage. She shared human genetic research freely, asking only that recipients share their own discoveries in return. Philosopher Minho's treatises on individual liberty and self-governance spread through galactic networks. He wrote in simple language that any species could understand. He asked questions rather than providing answers. His works were banned on council worlds, which only made them more popular. Underground networks formed to distribute his ideas. 3 months after Krishina's visit, the Free Alliance had grown to 41 member species. Trade networks formed outside council regulation. Defense pacts were signed without council approval. New technology spread freely rather than being locked behind council patents. The alternative to council authority was no longer theoretical. It was real and growing. Lurched the reports with growing despair. The council could survive this if they adapted. If they reformed. If they acknowledged that the galaxy had changed, but the chamber was paralyzed by internal conflict. Each faction saw danger in every direction and could not agree on how to respond. Then came the news that would force everyone to choose a side. The Draken Empire, sensing weakness in the Council's divided state, launched a full-scale invasion of Council space. The time for debate was over. War had come, and both the Council and humanity would have to decide what they truly valued. The Drakon. Empire came like a wave of fire across Council space. Their warships were brutal and efficient, designed for conquest rather than peacekeeping. They had been waiting for this moment for centuries, watching the Council's borders, looking for weakness. The defeat at Earth and the subsequent internal chaos had given them the opening they needed. 5. Council border worlds fell in the first week. The defense fleets, already diminished and demoralized from the conflict with humanity, fought bravely, but were overwhelmed. Refugees fled deeper into Council space, bringing stories of Draken brutality. The Empire did not negotiate or offer terms. They simply took what they wanted and enslaved those who survived in the council chamber. The arguments reached a breaking point. General Verkesh demanded total mobilization, including the conscription of forces from every member species. Councillor Nithra warned that such demands would cause more species to withdraw from the council entirely. Chairwoman Liresh tried to maintain order, but she could feel the institution crumbling beneath her. The real shock came when Ambassador Velthor, who had led the initial contact with humanity, proposed the unthinkable. We should ask the humans for help. The chamber fell silent. Then, it erupted in outrage. Ask those primitives for help? Verkesh roared. They are the cause of this crisis. Their defiance weakened us. Their philosophy poisoned our unity. Velthar remained calm. Yes, they defied us. Yes, they rejected our authority. But they also fought our enforcement fleet to a standstill with inferior technology and won through pure determination. If the Draken reach the core worlds, we will need that kind of determination. We will need allies who know how to fight impossible battles and win. On Earth, Admiral Hajin received the first Drakon intelligence reports from Free Alliance scouts. She studied the enemy formations and strategies with cold professional interest. The Draken were good. They had been fighting wars longer than humans had been using fire. Their tactics were refined through countless campaigns against the divided and demoralized council forces. They would likely achieve complete victory within a year. She called a meeting with Colonel Deho and President Sunwoo. The question before them was simple. Should humanity help the council that had tried to subjugate them just months earlier? Deho argued for neutrality. Let them fall. The council tried to destroy us. They would have taken our freedom and our technology. Now they are weak, and we are strong. We should secure our own territory and let the galaxy sort itself out. Sunwoo listened, then turned to Haijin. What do you think, Admiral? Haijin looked at the star maps showing the Draken advance. The Draken Empire enslaves every species they conquer. They do not negotiate. They do not allow autonomy. If the council falls, we will face them alone eventually. Better to fight them now with allies, even reluctant ones, than later by ourselves. She paused, then continued. But more than that, if we stand aside and watch billions die because we are angry at their government, what does that say about us? We told the galaxy we believed in freedom and dignity for all beings. If those are just words we use when convenient, then we are no better than the council we opposed. The decision was made. Humanity would offer assistance. Not because they owed the council anything. Not because they sought reward or recognition. But because it was the right thing to do, the offer was transmitted to the council chamber through official diplomatic channels. Admiral Hajin's message was brief and direct. The Free Alliance will assist in defending council worlds against the Draken Empire. We ask for no payment and no political concessions. We offer this help because all free beings have the right to defend themselves against tyranny. Send us your tactical data and coordinate with our fleet commanders. Veltha read the message aloud to the assembled council. The chamber fell silent once more. Then, slowly, Chairwoman Lirash stood. We accept their offer. Not because we have no choice, though that is true, but because they have shown us what true civilization means. They help not because they must, but because they choose to. The combined fleet assembled at the Korvath system, the last major defensive position before the Draken reached the Council core worlds. Human ships arrived in formation with vessels from 41 Free Alliance species. Council ships joined them, and for the first time in galactic history, humans and Council forces fought side by side. Admiral Haijin commanded the combined fleet. She had studied human military history extensively and knew that this battle would not be won through superior firepower. The Draken had them outgunned and outnumbered, but they could be outthought. She divided the fleet into rapid response groups, abandoning the traditional formation-based combat that Council doctrine required. Human fighters coordinated with Council heavy cruisers. Alliance scout ships fed targeting data to everyone simultaneously. It was chaos by Council standards, but it was effective chaos. The Battle of Korvath lasted 6 days. The Draken expected a defensive stand and found instead a fluid, adaptive response. When they concentrated their forces, the Allied fleet scattered and struck from multiple vectors. When they divided their fleet, the Allies concentrated and destroyed them piecemeal. Human tactics, developed through centuries of fighting against superior enemies, proved devastatingly effective. On the sixth day, the Draken commander ordered a retreat. His forces had taken 40% casualties and gained nothing. The invasion had been stopped. In the aftermath, representatives from the Council and the Free Alliance met on a neutral station to discuss the future. Chairwoman Liaresh and President Sunwoo sat across from each other, two leaders trying to find a path forward. "The Galactic Council as we knew it is dead," Liaresh said quietly. "Your humans killed it when you asked your questions. The battle just confirmed what many already knew. Authority based on tradition and force alone cannot sustain itself." Sunwoo nodded. "The Free Alliance is not interested in replacing the Council. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We just want to live in it as equals." "Then let us build something new," Liaresh proposed. "Not a council that rules from above, but a Congress where each species has equal voice. Not laws imposed by authority, but agreements made through cooperation. A union of free beings, not subjects and masters." The negotiations took 3 months. Representatives from 72 species, both former council members and Free Alliance partners, worked to create a new framework for galactic civilization. There were arguments and compromises. Some species withdrew, unwilling to accept true equality. Others joined enthusiastically. Seeing opportunity in the new order, the Galactic Congress was formally established on the 1-year anniversary of humanity's first faster-than-light jump. Chairwoman Liaresh, now Secretary General of the Congress, invited Captain Jiwan to address the opening session. The captain who had defied the Council's authority now stood before representatives from across the galaxy. "We did not come to the stars to conquer," Jiwan said. "We did not come to rule. We came because we believe that every being deserves the chance to stand tall and determine their own future. We came because we believe that cooperation between equals is stronger than hierarchy enforced from above. We came to prove that freedom is not chaos and authority is not order." She looked across the assembled representatives. Some were former enemies. Some were new allies. All of them had chosen to be here. The question was never whether you would accept us. The question was whether you were ready to be free. Today, you answered that question. Today, we build something that has never existed in this galaxy. A civilization of equals. A union of choice. A future we create together. The applause that followed was genuine and heartfelt. The Galactic Congress had begun. There would be challenges ahead. Old hierarchies did not die easily. The Draken Empire still existed beyond the borders, watching and waiting. Pirate factions operated in lawless regions. Economic disparities between species would take generations to address, but for the first time in galactic history, every species had an equal voice. Every world could determine its own path. And at the center of it all was humanity, not as rulers or masters, but as partners who had asked a simple question and changed everything. Admiral Hejin watched the ceremony from Earth, where she was supervising the reconstruction of the home fleet. Colonel Deho stood beside her. "Do you think it will last?" he asked. "This new order we helped create?" Hejin smiled. "I think people will keep asking questions. Some will want to return to the old ways. Some will want to go further than we have. But as long as beings have the freedom to ask those questions and seek their own answers, we have won something worth protecting across the galaxy." On thousands of worlds, beings looked up at the stars with new hope. The age of enforced unity was over. The age of chosen cooperation had begun. And humanity, the species that had refused to kneel, would stand alongside all who valued freedom above security and dignity above submission. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to build together.